Hi students, we're on to chapter 11 for our consumer behavior class. It's all about groups and social media. Something that you're all familiar with for sure. So other people and groups, especially those who possess some kind of social power, influence our decisions, whether they're decisions in life or decisions in shopping, etc. So what is a group? It gives us social identity. And we started out this semester, or the text chapters, number 1, we talked about having several selves that relate to certain groups. So perhaps you're a part of a team or fraternity or sorority or an organization like the American Marketing Association, or in this case, I have the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. So this becoming part of a group gives people social identities because we have different parts of our lives that, aren't always the same thing. So what are sources of power? There's a thing called social power, that's your definition, and it's a capacity to alter the actions of others because of the power that someone has socially. So let's get into the definition so you have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So there's a thing called referent power, and that's social power when one person admires the qualities of another and tries to copy their behavior. Okay, it could be a celebrity, it could be maybe an influencer, and you like something that they wear, whether it be their hairstyle or clothing. There's information power, which is I know more about something than you do, and that's where bloggers come in. Legitimate power is true authority, like the police, a judge. Expert power is something like a doctor. Reward power is held by someone who has the ability to offer an award. So it could be a professor. And then finally, coercive power. The opposite of reward power, this is held by someone who has the ability to punish. So that might be a principal at a school or a parent, okay? So think about these powers and how they influence us in our decisions that we make, depending on who's giving the information. So membership versus aspirational reference groups. Okay, so a reference group is an actual or an imaginary group that significantly influences an individual's evaluation, aspiration, and behavior. So a reference group can actually be anything from a family that you're in. Maybe your reference group is you're on the cheerleading team. Maybe your reference group is that you have a bunch of friends at work, retail, or you're a server at a restaurant. That's a reference group, okay? And you become friendly with these people and they influence you and your behavior, good or bad. Okay, membership reference groups, okay, are people that we relate to, okay? People that consumers actually know in a group. So you could be a part of a biking club, or a reference group could be something like a church group, okay? So advertisers, for example, connect us with these kinds of reference groups by using ordinary people and that we can relate to. So we don't look at it like, oh, we don't understand, this could never be me. But then there's aspirational reference groups, and these are people the consumer doesn't know, but they admire them. So maybe it's a blogger, an influencer, a celebrity used in advertising as a spokesperson. So there's a lot of marketing opportunity there for that, whether it be I used the fantasy camp before. So it's like, people want to be around these aspirational people, whether it's an athlete or a musician, an actor or actress. It could be just somebody that, they aspire to be like because they like them and they relate to them. There's positive versus negative reference groups. And so there's things called avoidance groups, motivation to distance yourself from a type of group. So it could be they're druggies or preppies or bullies or nerds, or a reason why maybe they're like very like stuck up, elitist. They could be a group of people that you don't want to be like because they're from a political party. Consumers do it in groups, as they say. Okay, so why do we conform to groups? Some people love joining groups and you're a part of different ones. Other people are kind of like, that's not for them. I'm definitely someone that's in the middle. I do like certain groups to connect with socially, whereas my husband, not so much. So we conform because of cultural pressures, like everybody's doing it, in being in a group. So there may be a fear of deviance, going against rules. So that's why we conform to a group. Commitment, we value membership, and we'll do anything to stay in that group. Group anonymity, meaning that there's a mob mentality that's hard to resist as a group. So if the group's doing it, well, then I guess it's okay. Interpersonal influence. Do others think highly of me because I'm a part of this group? Could be a country club, could be a sorority. I need them to think highly of me, and I need those influencers for maybe other purposes in my life. Environmental cues, you conform when you feel warm. Okay, so believe it or not, they do this a lot when they're trying to get someone to confess. They turn up the heat a little bit, and that's when you may conform a little bit more, answer some questions, believe it or not. Okay, so for each type of social power source of influence that I have listed above, think of an example of a time that you experienced that form of influence. You fall into one or two or more of these categories for sure. So think about that and how these groups have influenced your decision making. Sometimes we conform for a lot of different reasons. And like I said, it does work into our consumer behavior. So brand communities and consumer tribes, a group of consumers who share a set of relationships based upon usage or interest in a product. Okay, so it could be Apple products, or it could be bikes, like I have the Harley Davidson group here. And as I said before, brand communities are part of a lot of what Facebook does. Through that one video that I showed you, there's a group for everyone, or as we say, there's a lid for every pot, or there's a sock for every foot. So there's a lot of groups out there. Recently, I found the New York Times cooking group on Facebook. And it's basically people that are like a little bit higher level of ingredient users, understanding of cooking, sharing. So I'm in this group, and you share ideas. What do I do if I have extra bananas, or I just bought some alfalfa sprouts, or let me show you a picture of what I'm making for dinner tonight. Getting people's kind of weigh in, and you have something in common. Consumer tribes share emotions, moral beliefs, styles of life, and affiliated products. There's things called brand fests, and they celebrate the community, that particular community, and they get together. It's bonding, it's selling of products, it's sharing of stories, it's friendships. So think about a brand community that you're a part of. Or maybe you're one of those people like my husband who doesn't like to get involved with the community too much. So, learning objective. Word of mouth communication is the most important driver of product choice. So, word of mouth communication can come directly from a friend, directly talking and asking them. It can be found on a website. It can be found in reviews, but it absolutely is the driver, especially when we're buying something that's more expensive. Okay, so word of mouth communication, we feel that it's reliable, it's authentic, it's trustworthy. Um, the example I have down here, you may know these mints. They're called Altoids. Well, they didn't do a whole lot of advertising um, because they really were like building a buzz. And Altoids were known for people in the know. They were a curiously strong mint. They were a little bit kind of like edgy. They come in a package, like a little tin. And, you know, you had them in your pocket or your purse, and they were just kind of like unusual. So think of a product that's like that today. Many professionals depend on primary word of mouth, primarily on word of mouth, I'm sorry. So it could be like Angie's List for, you know, anything from, you know, a plumber, a handyman, an electrician. But there's also negative word of mouth, which we know outweighs positive. Because I tell a friend, you tell a friend, and that's the worst thing you can do that can happen to a business. Um, but there's also a thing called serial reproduction, the transmission of misinformation and how content mutates. So there sometimes, like, there's rumors that get out there about a product that are not true. This is what we're talking about. But let me tell you, recently I did have an experience, and I took it to Twitter. So my son turned 16 last week. And over the weekend, we had a party, like 6 kids over. And he insisted on getting Domino's pizza, which quite frankly, yuck. I get it in a pinch, but that was his choice rather than, you know, a place down the street where you're helping a small business like Jimmy Brooklyn's that has excellent pizza, including cauliflower pizza. But anyway, he's 16, boy, that's what he wanted. So we order it. And not only was I on the phone for about 13 minutes just on hold before I put the order in, when I put the order in, they said it would take about an hour. And it was 3 pizzas and wings. Okay, I don't know, like 14, 24 wings, I'm not sure. So an hour and change goes by. I look up at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, this pizza should be here by now. I just kind of, you know, lost time, as we were talking about before, lost track of time. So, wouldn't you know, I call back and they said, oh no, we have it down as a pickup. And my husband just lost it. Because here we had all these kids at our house. They were clearly already hungry and it was for his birthday. And so I was just like, you know, this isn't good. So my husband started talking to the guy and said he wanted to, you know, we're done with ordering from you. You know, please don't charge my card, cancel the order, etc. So what I decided to do was I went on Twitter for the first time. I hadn't never really done this before. And I just basically told them that I was disappointed. You know, I waited online for for them to pick up the phone. Then they didn't arrive. And then when they said they'd fix the order, they said it would take an hour and a half to 2 hours more. You know, the pizzas were already ready. Clearly they did not, customer service was not in their repertoire. So I kind of said everything that I wanted to say. And they got back to me and said, you know, we're sorry. We want to make this right. Can you give us your email address and your phone number and let us know the store? So I only had the phone number for the store. So I did all that. I did hear back from them again, and they said they were going to check with the store and, you know, please be patient, and, you know, they want to do something for us. So, I mean, that's the other side to that negative word of mouth. Okay. Do I feel better about Domino's? I do feel a little bit better, you know, that they cared a little bit and got back to me and were concerned for me as a customer. But I wish they would have done the right thing the first time. But that's the point, is negatively or positively, I like to tell a company that they did something good or bad. Don't let them get away with it. Okay. These days, we don't have to. Okay. So that's my little story. It just happened. So if we were in a face-to-face class right now, I do this fun exercise called, you might know it as telephone, but it's called Whisper Down the Lane. And it talks about this serial reproduction part of that misinformation. And I usually have like some sort of a fact that I give the class. I break the class up in two teams, and they start at one end and finish at the other end with a translation of what the first person said. And I get a lot of laughs. Nobody ever gets it right, missing information. But it's just like an exercise to show you that, rumors, you pass it along, and next thing you know, it becomes like an urban myth. So, something to be aware of. Yelp, okay? A lot of people use Yelp to either form a complaint or also read Yelp to see if this is a good place to go. I always just am weary sometimes because I always find that there's people that complain about everything. So you have to read enough and see the responses back from the company. I think reviews are very important, especially if you're spending a lot of money. Like if I went to an Airbnb, I want to see people's reactions. I want to see people's experiences. This is important. Okay, so we're moving on to a thing called collective decision making. If you're in a family, especially now, living at home, a lot of decisions have been made with more than two people. And they don't always have the same taste or preferences or consumption priorities. When I'm putting dinner together, for instance, or deciding to order out or deciding where to go, you're dealing with a collective group. It can be difficult. So different people in the group, as you know, play different roles in the decision to be made. So I'm going to go through what those roles are. And they start out with someone called the initiator. That's the person who brings up the idea like, hey, let's go out for dinner, okay? Or let's order in these days. The gatekeeper researches the options, offers a list of restaurants in the area, or in this case, who delivers. Then you have an influencer, and that person may sway the outcome of the decision. For instance, the farmer's table is close to campus and reasonably priced, or I've got a coupon, or it's happy hour, it's a 2-for-1. So that may sway our decision as to whether or not we're going to go somewhere. The buyer is the person who makes the purchase, okay? Sometimes it's, I've got this. And then the user is the person who consumes the service. Okay. And in my household lately, it's been, this was delicious. Thanks, mom and dad, because they're the ones that are consuming everything. So think about that when you're thinking about decision making, and think about that as a marketer and all the people here you need to think about and how you need to advertise to them and influence them, because it's not always who you think that pays the bill. Okay, for any of you who have worked in businesses, some of you have been in a position of buying products. And even if you haven't, it's good to know what goes on business to business. It's called B2B decision making. So there's actual people that are organizational buyers. I was a buyer for dairy and frozen for a company called Fleming Foods. They basically warehoused foods for all of the big food retailers in Arizona. So it was like Bashas' and Smith's and Abco and Albertsons. And I purchased on behalf of the company. And I list like an organizational buyer could work for, an FAU, they could work for a hospital, government agencies. And the whole difference here is that you're buying in large amounts and there's a lot of money being spent, and there's more research that goes into buying something than if you were just buying something for yourself or your family. The differences between business to business decision making and the business to consumer decision making. Okay. So when we're working for a company, we got to get the approval of many. And then if it's business to consumer, it might be one or two people. Business to business, I need to be very knowledgeable about all the aspects of the product. Whereas maybe business to consumer, I know most of them. And guess what? If I get it home and it's not the right thing, it's not a big deal. I can send it back. There's no impulse buying. with business to business, whereas there's definitely is when it's business to consumer. You're usually dealing in a high value dollar, risky for your career, don't make a bad move, okay? And then you're usually, when you're purchasing something as a consumer, it's the price isn't as high and you're not spending that much money. Then you're certainly not going to lose your job. And then business to business, we do rely on personal selling. That means that like sales rep that's going to talk to us about products, new features. Whereas our business to consumer, we're going brick and mortar or online. And again, that's where those, the Yelp reviews come in. We do look at reviews, but we typically don't have someone we can talk to. Some companies do. There's three types of buying classes in business to business, okay? There's someone who buys just, it's called a straight rebuy. There's no changes. It's just like the last order. It's low risk. It's automatic. Like, think of, I need to reorder paper for the business department at FAU. Okay. We ordered 100 reams last week or the last time, and we used most of it. Let's reorder the same thing again. Modified rebuy, reorder with small changes. Again, not a lot of risk. One or few decision makers. Well, maybe if it's for paper again, well, guess what? We only finish 50 reams of paper because nobody's on campus. So the next time we order, it's not going to be as much. But hey, if people are coming back in the fall, I might make some small changes in my modified rebuy. And then the third area is called new task. It includes problem solving, research, high risk, and a group of decision makers. That means maybe I'm buying a new copier for the business department and I need to find out, what does everybody like? Do they want a scanner? Do they want something that collates? Do they want something that includes a stapler? Can it have different sizes of paper? So if that's the case, I got to get a lot of people's decision, and influences before I decide to buy this. And it's usually something higher end and higher money and higher risk. Business to business e-commerce. This usually happens between two companies and they usually have an online catalog. So we're going to move on from this whole business to business thing. Okay. As I said before, it's very difficult to make decisions in groups, but you need to do it, especially families during these difficult times of all of us being together. We've had a lot of conflicts when it comes to family decisions. So think about these 4 different areas we're going to talk about. There's interpersonal need, a person's level of investment in the group. Some people don't care if you get a particular item. Other people are, use that item all the time. Product involvement, the degree to which the person will use the product. Responsibility for the procurement, maintenance, and payment. So, for instance, getting a dog. Sure, I'll spend the money, but are you going to help me out in maintaining and walking and feeding the dog? Power, the degree to which one family member exerts influence over another. For instance, a parent or an oldest child is influencing maybe the power over the younger or the children in the family. So marketers in the family. So marketers go after that family financial officer, the FFO, the person who keeps track of family finances. They need to know who that decision maker is. But today there's obviously a lot of joint decision making going on. And this is called the synoptic ideal. That's that joint decision making. Family identity means that there's family rituals, structure, and everyday interactions. So marketers use this type of advertising to portray everyday life and the products and services we use. So it could be, breakfast in the morning, or kids going off to school, or dinner time, or doing laundry, or cleaning the house. So these are rituals that happen every day in life, and we need products to make our lives easier. So that's why marketers use this type of messaging. This is also called slice of life, it's called. So let's break down how to market to that wife and understand her. So we know there's more women in the workforce, leading to more shared responsibilities. So there's a couple things of the way they describe the wife. A juggled lifestyle where she's frenzied, guilt-ridden, she compromises between conflicting cultural ideals of motherhood and then her actual professionalism. Kid network system. Typically, a wife maintains the family ties and coordinates get-togethers. She influences family leisure activities. In a lot of my classes, I say, hey, is this true? And a lot of times it's, you know what? You listen to what mom says. Now let's go to the husband. There's a thing called dadvertising. This shift is because there's more men at home with the kids and marketers are changing their approach to advertising. Of course, be smart. There is this great ad here, hashtag how to dad, and it's by Cheerios. Take a look at this YouTube video. It's really funny, but it really pushes that, you know, envelope about, you know, being a dad, making the decisions, how difficult it is, and how you influence your family. Okay, so the characteristics of an opinion leader. So this slide talks about an opinion leader, and you know, we all know one of them. Okay, they're the knowledgeable people about products. You take their advice seriously. It could be a professor. It could be your parents. It could be an older sibling, an aunt and uncle, a neighbor. But they're knowledgeable about something. Okay, they're usually experts. They're unbiased evaluation, socially active. They're similar to the consumer. So they're like a relatable person. Okay, so this person can be a blogger, an influencer, but a lot of us look at bloggers and influencers because they can relate to that person. Maybe they look like them, their age group, etc. They're also among the first to buy things, like it could be usually in technology, and they actively search for information. So they're always looking for the next thing. How influential is an opinion leader? Well, a lot of you can answer that question, but there's a lot of ways it works. So there's two-step flow model of influence says that small groups of influencers disseminate information and they can change the opinions of large groups of people. So think politics, think a lot of things that are going on today in our society. So it's called an influence network, and it creates what we call an information cascade. So think of like a cascading waterfall, which could occur like an avalanche, and it triggers interactions that you might see on Instagram or Facebook where there's shares and things just keep going and popping. But a lot of times it comes from smaller groups. It's not always the larger groups, as we know. The smaller influencers have more impact. They're more, I don't want to say reputable, but believable. So here's an example of the Fiesta. So this Ford car, came out with the slogan, "Join the Fiesta movement." And what they did was they gave a lot of cars to influencer type people to drive around the country and document their voyage and journey. And they don't need to invest enormous sum for his or her merchandise, but to reach and identify the appropriate audience for promotion. The primary goal was to create an interest as well as to convince young American who's the first time new car buyer and train them on emotional and practical worth in a subcompact car. So this was kind of interesting how they got a lot of attention from this car, and they had a really good kind of creative way to connect with the audience that was unusual for a car dealership, or a car maker, I should say. So there's types of opinion leaders. This one is called the Market Maven, and you see her, she knows everybody. Actively involved in transmitting marketplace information of all types. They are into shopping and aware of what's new, where the new places are to shop. They have overall knowledge of how and where to get products. So I don't necessarily see myself as a market maven, but I definitely have opinions about, say, products that I'm interested in, maybe cooking products and things like that, that maybe I would influence someone about. So let's not forget about what they call the surrogate consumer. They're the marketing intermediary hired to provide input into the purchase decision. So these are the stockbrokers, these are the interior decorators, the professional shoppers, the college consultants, the house managers. Okay, they let the consumer relinquish control over decision making and allow them to make those decisions. So these people should not be overlooked. They have a lot of influence over consumers. Product curators or influencers, we've talked a lot about them. Experts who offer recommendations on how to use the product and share their stories. There's a ton of them out there for using, apple cider vinegar, or using a beauty product, or using a hair product, or using, some sort of gym equipment or new fitness product, or eating a protein bar. Whatever it is, they're out there. But how do we find these leaders? Well, you know that same way, you find out about influencers because a friend tells you. It's word of mouth. But sometimes there's people that have self-designating method. Simply ask individuals whether they consider themselves to be an opinion leader. And you can also kind of observe this as well about somebody. They usually operate on a local level, influencing small groups. And I do have a great video here. It's from Sierra Mist Ruby Splash, and it's the way they infiltrated influencer groups. So what companies do is they go after those small influencer groups because they know they can. They get into the marketplace in a lot of different ways, and it's also less expensive. So I want you to take a look at this. It's a little older, but you get the point of how they infiltrated all these groups, because influencers then wrote about the product, they had parties around the product, they gave it out as samples, things like that. Sociometry is called the Kevin Bacon phenomenon, if you haven't heard of it. It's that a trace communication pattern among members of a group, allowing marketers to map out interactions among group members. Some connections are stronger than others. So referral behavior is discovered. So think teammates and sororities. So they say that there's not that many, I think it's the 7, I'm trying to remember what the Kevin Bacon phenomenon is, but it's called like the 7, you're removed by 7 people from Kevin Bacon. All I think about with this is networking, okay? I think like LinkedIn, okay? Connecting with people, knowing who knows somebody else so you can get to that person if there's someone who can help you get a job or connect you with something else, okay? So, yeah, I'll think of it. I can't think of it right now. Okay, social media, the horizontal revolution, they're calling it. Information flows not up and down anymore, but side to side. It's called synchronous communication, otherwise known as texting. Okay, communicating in real time, versus asynchronous communication that does not need all participants to respond immediately. Like this is asynchronous communication, okay? I'm communicating with you and you can respond to me via email, but it's not something that we're doing like a Zoom call or something. Social media platforms enable culture of participation, okay? The example I can tell you right now is my Twitter interaction with Domino's Pizza. Made me feel good that I could complain to someone, made me feel good that they got back to me and were aware of their flub, okay? And so, yes, a whole bunch more communication and participation than there ever was in time. Successful online social networks and communities. So maybe you are a part of a social community such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, I'm sure. And we all know that there's certain standards of behavior. As a matter of fact, I would be very careful as to what you post, whether you're holding a solo cup or you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, because many recruiting companies out there, they scan through all of that information before they hire you. If you've said something wrong, you're wearing something wrong, you're posing a certain way, whatever the case may be, they go through all of that stuff. So be very careful. Recently, I think there was some racist comment from a student, an incoming freshman at a university, I believe it's Marquette, and she lost her scholarship and is not invited back to the school to come in any capacity because of things she said. So standards of behavior, things you should say and not say, okay? Member contributions, you need member contributions to certain groups to keep it going. You know, I think of something like LinkedIn and how it continuously is filled with articles and different things that help us kind of understand what's going on in the business world. There's a degree of connectedness. It motivates us to stay connected. So maybe you want to see what's going on with your high school class, or job opportunities, or helpful hints, like I said, with cooking. There is a network effect, because the more people using this social network or community improves the site. So the more people that are on LinkedIn, obviously, the more communication and networking you can do. So we think about, why are we even on these social media communities? And many of it is because we like to stay connected with people that are like-minded. We're also afraid of not being in the know of what's going on among our social circle. Social media changes the way we learn about and select products. Absolutely. I like this ad. It is, my mom hasn't accepted my friend request yet. What could she possibly be doing? And this is her car because she's out and about. So it does change the way we select our products and connect with everyone. So with our last couple of slides, we're going to talk about a few more related topics. So digital word of mouth. Again, we're kind of beating this to death here, but we have a lot of ways to look at word of mouth. There's viral marketing. It occurs when an organization motivates visitors to forward online content to their friends. So we know what that looks like. That's been more than ever now with us locked inside. Content marketing, creating content, usually a video that is of interest to an audience. TikTok for sure. Haul videos, unboxing videos. Video is definitely the wave of the future. It is the way to connect with audiences. Quick, informational, entertaining videos are the way to connect in the future for sure. And now, megaphone effect. So why do we post? It's sharing with our network. We do this because we like something, a product or an item. We like to update our friends on new experiences, places we've been, offer our opinion about something. So I want you to think about why you post on social media, if you do. It could be something that recently happened to you, an experience, etc. It could also be looking for advice. So the last slide here is influencer marketing. What is it? You know what it is, but let's put some definition and some form around it. It's that cool kid phenomenon where we look for power users as opinion leaders online. They influence us by giving mentions of brands that they use. Holds a lot of power, okay? Mass connectors are brand influencers. You have Kylie over here with her lip gloss that went, you know, flew off the shelves, and I believe she's like a billionaire. Tyler, the creator over here with his streetwear. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know who Tyler, the creator is, but my son does. He influences him, his artwork, etc. So the point of the matter is there's a lot of people out there influencing brands, influencing us. And just from a marketing perspective, understand what that means and how that can be used. Whether you're working in an internship this summer, getting ready to graduate, you're currently in a job, how can you relate this information to your everyday life? We will see you for chapter 12 coming up. In the meantime, email me with any questions. Keep working in your groups, getting your field exercises done, and feel free to reach out if you need me.